morning.
Good morning.
It's good to be back. Thank you for having me. To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, and kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we do act in however a small way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents. And to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a marvelous victory. In my world of storytelling, there is something called a liar's contest. They're going on several times a year, and a friend of mine posted one. It's an event where professional and amateur storytellers get together to see who can tell the tallest tale and win a prize. And I commented, maybe we could invite some of our politicians to one of these. So, some of us are reeling from political news. Many of us are concerned about the raging fires that are going on across the country. And other related events. We just experienced our first microburst a few weeks ago. It's a scary looking thing if you look them up. And still more of us are having trouble with just the ordinary everyday concerns of illness and relationship concerns and job-related things. But in the spring, how many of you planted something? Is there anybody here besides me who has a garden? And you water it and you watch things come up, and maybe by now you're eating fresh vegetables? That's faith. Last night, you went to bed fully expecting that you would wake up and you could come here, right? Faith lives knowing that the moon will continue to wax and wane. The sun will rise and set. Our lives happen in an ocean of possibility, some good, some less desirable, yet we continue on. How do we do that? How do we do it? We do it, right? As Alan Watts said a long time ago, to have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you'll sink. Instead, you float. And as we float, we can turn to gratitude for all that is good and bountiful and joyful in our lives. The deepest faith, and the one most difficult to comprehend, is one that rides on through the darkness. No evidence exists that your strong-held faith will produce a desired result, yet somewhere, somehow, you come back to trust. This type of faith rests on the belief that love and goodness prevail over all, and it's often called blind or foolish. I look to see how others are doing it, and this college student, a budding journalist, Alex Bosworth, says, "As we watch all the bad things on the news, we need to cling to the idea that there is still happiness and love in the world. We need to cling to it like our lives depend on it, because they do. Faith in goodness and love is the thing that keeps us from locking ourselves in our rooms. We have faith that the sun will rise each morning. We have faith that the people we love will continue to love us back, despite all the things we do to annoy them. We have faith that even in a time with so much hate, there are enough good people to make love worth it. You may not have faith in a God, but you have great amounts of faith in life and love and art and so many other things. Even when life is worse than I could ever imagine," says Alex, I can't see anything good through my cloudy vision. I have faith that if I stumble through it, there is something wonderful coming up." Helen Keller said, "Faith is the strength by which a shattered world shall emerge into the light." As we live in a world that feels like it's shattering, I remind myself that this service was written and given 12 years ago. And we're still here. I'd like to share a story that helped to shape my own faith. A story that I've heard many times. Little Dorothy was 8 years old during the Great Depression when her father left for California to go find work. He told her, "Dorothy, I am going to find us a house right next door to Shirley Temple." And if you're not familiar, she was a little Hollywood star that was lifting everybody's spirits. And he sent her a Shirley Temple doll that unfortunately, at the time of what they made them out of, it arrived with a big crack down the middle, which broke the little 8-year-old heart. And while this was all going on, her mother was taking her to the garbage dump with her little brother, her little 3-year-old brother, to look for food. We prettied it up and we call it a landfill, but it was a garbage dump. And he was gone, her father was gone so long that her mom couldn't handle. She didn't have enough money to handle both children, so she sent little Dorothy to live with her grandparents down in Tyrone, Pennsylvania. And the first thing that happened when Dorothy arrived, the very first thing, was her grandmother cut off all her beautiful long brown ringlets that were kind of her pride and joy at such a difficult time. "I don't have time for this," her grandmother said, and little Dorothy heard, "I don't have time for you." Well, her grandfather saw what was happening and he felt sorry for her and he said, "Come on, Dorothy, let's go live a little." And he picked her up and he carried her out to his old Ford and he took her to every candy store, every ice cream shop, every soda fountain that he could think of and let her get anything she wanted. Well, you can imagine that by the time she got home, she was a little green around the gills because he let her have whatever she wanted. And she had sundaes and candy and ice cream cones and all kinds of stuff. And her Grammy said, "George Washington Boyer, what have you done to this child?" And she knew exactly, somewhere inside her, what he had done for her. He restored a little bit of her faith. Well, years later, she had a little child of her own, me. And Grammy passed away, and we took Pappy in to live with us. And it was one of the best times I ever remember from my childhood, because he got down on his knees and his hands and knees, and he let me ride him like a pony. And he got down with his creaky old bones, and he played tea party with me with my dolls and my teddy bears. And it lasted for 6 months. And I still remember. But sadly, Pappy passed away too. And then a few months later, my own grandma, my mother's mother, died. And when Pappy was there, he happened to be there at Easter time, and he had given my mother this beautiful Easter lily. And during our time of grieving, it sat out on our porch, our covered porch, in a dark corner, ignored and turned brown and brittle for an entire year. And then one day, somebody knocked on the door. Somebody came to visit, knowing that the grieving was still going on. And my mother answered, and the friend said, "Dorothy, did you see that pot over there in the corner? It's got green on it." And my mother looked, and sure enough, that lily was growing, totally ignored. And she brought it inside, and she watered it and cared for it, put it in a sunny window. And on Easter morning, a beautiful white lily opened. And she said, "Robin, that's Pappy saying, 'Dorothy, come on, let's go live a little.'" That was my introduction to how faith is resurrected, when hope reminds us of its presence in all those little ways. Faith is defined as confidence or trust in a person, a thing, or a belief, not based on proof. Hope is an optimistic attitude of mind based on an expectation or desire. We need faith and hope. We can look to hope as a butterfly that flutters to and fro, and faith is the air that sustains its flight. Once we know faith and allow it into ourselves, grace can take over. Daphne Rose Kingma says, "Hope is promise. When the present seems unbearable, hope allows us to find ease. When we hope, we partake of the state of absolute calm that has already understood that everything we have done and everything we shall do will be beautiful somewhere, sometime, that our sorrows will embrace us, and even our tragedies will bring us to our depth. Grace adds a quality of silkiness to our movements, not only to the way we move our bodies, but to the way our spirits inhabit them. Not only to the way we move through the world, but because of our genteel openness, we allow the world to move through us. Grace is beauty, refinement of the Spirit. We hold grace as the measure of what we may aspire to as the spiritual grandeur in our lives. Wisdom, the soul's ancient intelligence, allows us to know when to trust. Faith, hope, grace, and wisdom are grand powers of the soul that insist through their stunning magnificence that everything else in your life rise up to meet them. When you cultivate faith, hope, grace, and wisdom, they require in every arena that you become much more than you already are, that you step through your old limitations and envision a larger world. A breathtakingly beautiful world, alive with possibility and abundant with the power to redeem itself. When I hear the latest abomination happening in this country, sometimes I feel like I'm losing my faith, my hope. And I think, this isn't the country I thought I lived in. How did we get here? Haven't we evolved at all? Hebrews 11, chapter 1, or verse 1 from the Christian Bible tells us, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. I remember Pappy's Easter lily and the seeds I plant in the springtime that one day rise up from their hiding places. I realize I have faith that the light of day always follows the bleak night. I can hope things get better because I've gotten through a lot of challenges, and happiness comes back time and time again. As clergyman William Sloane Coffin captures so well, new and greater realities are not something one believes in as much as something one creates by taking a leap. We convince ourselves that life can't be trusted, that people will let us down, that this is as good as it gets. And then a hunger rises up that says, act anyway. Trust anyway. Fear not. Try again. In this sense, our tradition here challenges doubt. Some doubts are healthy, other doubts keep us small. Don't trust the impulse to stay small. Listen deeply to life's mystical whispers about there being more. Faith is an invitation more than a statement of belief. You allow faith to lure you into new life. Doubt the voices trying to convince us of endlessly troubled world. Know that life wants more from us and for us. Know that there is a mystical urge in us and around us that does not want us to be satisfied with the way things are or remain shriveled in the safety of small living. Listen for the faithful whispers. Faith is available no matter how far down the abyss we fall. The hope that is left after all your hopes are gone is faith rooted in the heart. Be open to giving and receiving, and look for faith in places we might not expect. Hint: you won't find much heart-centered stuff on the news media, where each camp has its own way of presenting the news, skewed toward opinion rather than equitable reporting. You will find it by planting trees and native vegetation, trusting that they will grow to fulfill their role in healing our air and water and giving generously of their medicines. support and promote organizations and businesses that protect our creatures, and work toward a greener world, having faith that a sustainable future is already blooming from different things that I see and read. Perform acts of random kindness for loved ones and strangers with faith that your generosity causes a ripple of joy. Find a meditation style that suits you to calm and soothe your worries. Learn healthy, effective forms of communication and have faith that cooperation and unity are possible. Cultivate empathy and rely on faith to see you through when communications become muddled. I invite you to follow faith, hope, grace, and wisdom to weave themselves through the fabric of your being when you witness the rising and setting sun, the steadfast nature of moon cycles, when you hear the sound of a newborn baby's cry, or look into the eyes of your loved ones. And a little tongue twister, Rabindranath Tagore said, "Faith is the bird that feels the light when the dawn is still dark." Thank you.